I never expected my own brother, Daniel, to put my name on the banned investors list at his business launch. At first, it seemed like some kind of inside joke, just Daniel being Daniel, always the prankster. But deep down, I knew something was off. Years of working in corporate law had taught me to notice the smallest signs, and I could feel this was no accident. Later, when I uncovered the real reason behind my exclusion, my heart sank, and I realized things were far worse than I imagined. Before we continue, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The night of Daniel's business launch was supposed to be a celebration, a new chapter for our family, a chance to put old wounds behind us. The venue was a glass-walled rooftop in downtown Chicago, the city lights flickering like a promise of success. I arrived early, dressed, in my best suit, clutching a bottle of vintage wine I'd saved for this very occasion. The air buzzed with anticipation, the kind you only feel at the start of something big. As I stepped into the lobby, I was greeted by a wall of glossy posters. Welcome to the future of tech, a Morrison family venture. Our last name, in gold, was everywhere. For a moment, I felt a surge of pride. Daniel and I had always dreamed of building something together, ever since we were kids selling lemonade on the corner. But as I approached the entrance, a clipboard caught my eye. It was propped up on a stand. The words, "Banned Investors," scrawled in bold red marker across the top. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But then I saw my name, Alex Morrison, at the very top of the list. My heart skipped. Underneath, in smaller print, were a few other names. An old business rival, a former investor, who'd sued Daniel, and then me. I should have seen it coming. The security guard, a guy built like a linebacker, blocked my path. "Sorry, sir, you're not on the guest list." I tried to play it cool. "There must be a mistake. I'm Daniel's brother." He didn't even blink. "I have strict instructions. No exceptions." The humiliation burned hotter than the summer air. Guests streamed past me, some glancing over, others pretending not to notice. I caught sight of my mother, her face tight with worry, and my father, stone-faced as always. My phone buzzed a text from Daniel. "Sorry, Alex. Not tonight. We'll talk soon." That was the moment everything changed. I stood there, frozen, as the doors closed behind the last guest. The city felt colder, the lights harsher. I had nothing left to lose. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something odd. A familiar face in the crowd, someone I hadn't seen in years, slipping Daniel a thick envelope. The look on Daniel's face was priceless, a mix of fear and greed. That was my first breadcrumb. Something was very, very wrong. What was in that envelope, and why was Daniel so desperate to keep me out? I spent the next morning replaying every detail in my mind. The humiliation still raw. My phone was silent, no apology, no explanation from Daniel. I couldn't shake the image of that envelope, or the way Daniel's hand trembled as he took it. Years of family drama had taught me that secrets never stayed buried for long, especially in a narcissistic family like ours. I drove to my parents' house, hoping for answers. My mother met me at the door, her eyes red-rimmed. "Alex, maybe it's best if you let Daniel have his moment," she whispered, glancing nervously down the hall. My father wouldn't even look at me. The golden child favoritism was nothing new, but this felt different, colder, calculated. I wandered into Daniel's old room, searching for any clue. That's when I found it, a crumpled invitation tucked behind a stack of business magazines. It wasn't addressed to me, but to someone named E. Harper. The RSVP email was Daniel's, but the phone number was unfamiliar. My gut twisted. I snapped a photo and slipped out before anyone noticed. Back in my car, I dialed the number. A woman answered, her voice clipped. "Harper Consulting." I hesitated. "Hi, I'm calling about the Morrison launch event. I saw your name on an invitation." She cut me off. "We don't discuss client business over the phone." The line went dead. That was the moment I realized Daniel wasn't just excluding me, he was hiding something big. I scrolled through social media, searching for any mention of Harper Consulting. A single post caught my eye, A photo of Daniel and the same woman from the envelope, shaking hands in front of a Harper Consulting banner. The caption read, "Excited to announce our exclusive partnership with Morrison Tech." My heart pounded. This wasn't just a family betrayal. Daniel had cut me out of the business, out of our dream, and replaced me with a stranger. The broken trust was like a punch to the gut, but I wasn't about to let him get away with it. They underestimated me. I was about to uncover just how deep this betrayal went. What was Daniel risking by partnering with Harper Consulting, and what did he have to hide? That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's name in gold, my own in red. The betrayal gnawed at me, sharper than any business loss. This wasn't just a toxic family move, it was a calculated erasure. I kept thinking, I've seen it coming. Daniel had always been the entitled sibling, but I never thought he'd stoop this low. By morning, my anger had crystallized into resolve. If Daniel wanted a war, I'd give him one. I started by digging through old emails and contracts from when we first brainstormed Morrison Tech. My legal background gave me an edge. Every clause, every signature, every timestamp mattered. I found the original partnership agreement, signed by both of us, stating that any major business decision required joint approval. If Daniel had signed an exclusive deal with Harper Consulting without me, he'd violated that contract. I called my old friend Priya, a forensic accountant who owed me a favor. "I need you to look into Harper Consulting," I said, my voice low. "See if there's anything off shell companies, financial manipulation, anything." She didn't hesitate. "Send me what you have. I'll get started tonight." Meanwhile, I reached out to a few former colleagues who'd attended the launch. Most were tight-lipped, but one, Mark, finally cracked. "Alex, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Daniel's been saying you're out of the picture. He told everyone you sold your shares 2 months ago, that you wanted nothing to do with the company." My blood ran cold. "That's a lie. I never sold anything." Mark's voice dropped. "He showed people documents. I didn't see them myself, but he's convincing." That was the moment everything changed. Daniel wasn't just cutting me out, he was rewriting history, painting me as the family scapegoat. The inheritance betrayal, the public humiliation, the broken trust. It was all part of his plan. I had nothing left to lose. It was time to fight back, to gather evidence, and to show Daniel that karma strikes back harder than he could ever imagine. What would Priya uncover about Harper Consulting, and could I prove Daniel's lies before it was too late? Priya called me just after midnight, her voice tense. "Alex, you need to see this." She'd spent hours combing through Harper Consulting's financials, and what she found was damning. They're a shell, Alex, registered in Delaware, but the real money's moving offshore. And get this, 2 months ago, Daniel transferred a large sum from Morrison Tech's account to a Harper subsidiary. It's classic financial manipulation. My heart pounded. "Can you trace where the money went?" She hesitated. "It's layered, but I'm working on it. There's more. Harper's CEO, Elaine Harper, was sued for property theft and will contestation in a family business betrayal case last year. She's notorious for targeting family-run companies, getting close, and gutting them from the inside." In Fort, I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just a business deal gone wrong. Daniel had invited a predator into our family, risking everything our parents had built. I scrolled through the evidence. Priya sent bank statements, emails, even a photo of Daniel and Elaine at a private dinner weeks before the launch. Breadcrumbs everywhere, if you knew where to look. I started piecing together a timeline, matching Daniel's sudden coldness with each major transaction. The pattern was clear. Every time I questioned him about the business, another chunk of money vanished. I should have seen it coming. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was financial, legal, and public. I printed everything, building a file thick enough to make any lawyer sweat. But I needed more. I needed proof that Daniel had forged my signature, that he'd lied about me selling my shares. I remembered the look on his face at the launch, the fear, the desperation. He knew he was playing with fire. I decided to confront Elaine Harper directly. If she were as ruthless as Priya said, maybe she'd slip up. I sent her a polite email, requesting a meeting to discuss my ongoing role in Morrison Tech. Her reply was almost instant. Happy to meet. Tomorrow 10 a.m. at our office. That was the moment I realized the real game was just beginning. What would Elaine reveal in person, and would she realize I was on to her and Daniel's scheme? The next morning, I arrived at Harper Consulting's office, a sleek, sterile space with glass walls and the faint scent of expensive cologne. Elaine Harper greeted me with a practiced smile, her handshake cold and firm. "Alex, I've heard so much about you," she said, her eyes scanning me like a chess opponent sizing up a threat. I played my part, feigning ignorance. I was surprised to hear about the partnership. Daniel and I always made decisions together. I'm sure he mentioned that. I watched her reaction closely, searching for any crack in her composure. She didn't flinch. Daniel assured us everything was above board. He said you'd moved on to other ventures. Her tone was smooth, but there was a flicker of something uncertainty, maybe in her eyes. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Funny, because I never signed off on any deal. In fact, I still own half the company. I'd hate for this partnership to get messy if the paperwork isn't in order. Elaine's smile faltered for just a second. I'm sure Daniel has everything documented. If you have concerns, perhaps you should speak with him directly. I nodded, but inside, I knew I'd struck a nerve. As I left, I caught a glimpse of her, hurriedly texting someone, no doubt Daniel. The trap was set. Now, I just needed to tighten it. Back in my car, I called Priya. She's nervous. I think she knows Daniel's been forging documents. Priya replied, I just got a hit on the signature analysis. The documents, did Daniel show the documents to investors? The signatures are digital. Overlays yours, copied from old contracts. It's fraud, Alex, and I have the metadata to prove it. My pulse raced. This was the evidence I needed. But I couldn't go to the authorities yet, not without exposing my hand too soon. I needed Daniel to incriminate himself, to show the world the entitled family member he'd become. That was the moment everything changed. I decided to confront Daniel at the next board meeting, in front of everyone. Would Daniel crack under pressure, or would he double down on his lies, risking everything? The day of the board meeting, the air in the conference room was thick with tension. Daniel sat at the head of the table, flanked by Elaine and a few nervous-looking board members. I walked in, file in hand, and every eye turned to me. The room fell silent. I could feel my heart pounding, but I kept my voice steady. Before we begin, I said, I'd like to address something critical to the future of Morrison Tech. I slid copies of Priya's findings across the table. These documents show unauthorized transfers, forged signatures, and a partnership that violates our founding agreement. I never sold my shares. Daniel, you know that. Daniel's face went pale. Alex, this isn't the time. I cut him off. It's exactly the time. You told investors I was out. You forged my signature. You funneled company money to Harper Consulting's offshore accounts. This isn't just a family betrayal, it's fraud. Elaine tried to interject, but I turned to her. Elaine, your history speaks for itself. Property theft, will contestation, and targeting family businesses. Did you really think you could pull the same scam twice? The board members exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, Mr. Patel, cleared his throat. Daniel, is this true? Daniel's hands shook as he fumbled for words. Alex is twisting things. He's always been jealous. I slammed the original partnership agreement on the table. Read the clause. Any major decision requires both our signatures. You broke the law, Daniel, and I have the evidence to prove it. Read. The look on Daniel's face was priceless: panic, anger, and finally, defeat. He underestimated me. The board demanded an immediate review. Elaine stood up, gathering her things, her mask of confidence slipping. As I left the room, I heard Daniel's voice crack. Alex, please, let's talk about this. But I was done talking. Justice was finally on my side. What would the board decide, and would Daniel and Elaine face real consequences for their betrayal? The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within hours, the board called an emergency session without Daniel or Elaine present. I sat in a quiet office, hands trembling, as the directors pored over the evidence. The weight of years of family drama, broken trust, and betrayal pressed down on me. I kept thinking, this is what justice served. Feels like raw, uncertain, but necessary. By the end of the day, Daniel was suspended as CEO, pending a full investigation. Elaine's contract was terminated on the spot. The board issued a public statement. Morrison Tech is committed to transparency and integrity. We are cooperating fully with authorities regarding recent financial irregularities. The news spread fast. Local business blogs, LinkedIn, and even a segment on the evening news. The phrase family business betrayal trended for days. Daniel tried to call me 6 times. Each time, I let it ring. He left a voicemail, his voice cracking. Alex, I messed up. Please, don't let them take everything. We're still family. But I remembered. The humiliation at the launch, the lies, the forged documents. I had nothing left to lose, and I wasn't about to let him off easy. Elaine, meanwhile, vanished. Priya later found out she'd wired the last of the stolen funds to a numbered account in the Caymans. But with the evidence we'd gathered, the authorities froze her assets and launched a criminal investigation. Karma strikes back, I thought, and sometimes it's faster than you expect. My parents were devastated. My mother wept when she learned the truth, blaming herself for not seeing Daniel's true colors. My father, always so stoic, simply said, "You did the right thing, Alex. You protected the family, even when it hurt." But the real shock came when the board offered me the CEO position. For a moment, I hesitated. Was this what I wanted? Or was it just another chapter in our toxic family saga? Would I accept the role and try to rebuild Morrison Tech, or walk away from the family business for good? I stood in the empty boardroom, sunlight streaming through the windows, the city humming below. The offer letter sat on the table, my name at the top. For years, I dreamed of leading Morrison Tech, but not like this, not on the ashes of family betrayal and broken trust. I thought of Daniel, of the look on his face when the truth came out. I thought of my parents, torn between their sons, and the legacy we'd nearly lost to greed and lies. In the end, I accepted the CEO position, but with conditions. I insisted on a full audit, new transparency policies, and a scholarship fund for employees' families, so no one else would ever feel like a scapegoat in their own home. The board agreed. Morrison Tech would be rebuilt, not just as a business, but as a place where integrity mattered more than bloodlines. Daniel eventually reached out, this time with a letter. He apologized, admitting to everything: his jealousy, his desperation, his fear of never measuring up. I read it, then tucked it away. Forgiveness would take time, but I wasn't going to let the past define my future. As for Elaine, she was indicted for financial manipulation and property theft. The authorities were still unraveling her web of shell companies. Justice, at last, was being served. Now, every time I walk into the office, I remember that night at the launch, the moment I saw my name on the banned investors list. That was the moment everything changed. They underestimated me. But in the end, I protected what mattered most: my family's legacy and my own self-respect. If you've ever been betrayed by an entitled family member or faced a toxic family situation, know this: you're not alone. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And never let anyone rewrite your story. Thank you for watching. If this family drama or revenge story resonated with you, please hit like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Where are you watching from? And what would you have done in my shoes?